Welcome to the explanation of the larvae module of the SmartDots software. When you log into SmartDots, you get to the event overview page. Here you can select the event that you want to annotate. In this case, I want to open event 681. I can open the event by double-clicking on it or clicking on it once and pressing the Analyze button below. When you get into the event, you have different panels with information on your samples. The top left panel, called Sample List, provides information on the sample and the status of your annotations. The first column shows the status of your annotations. If the color is red, that means there's no annotations done on this sample. If the color is orange, that means there's annotations done on the sample, but they have not been approved yet. If the color is green, that means annotations have been done and they have also been approved and the sample is finished. The other columns give information on the sample itself, such as fish ID, catch date, length of the larvae, area where it was caught, and the number of images that are available for that sample. If you think there's too much information presented in this panel, you have the option of removing one or more of the columns. To do that, you can go to the header, click on it with the left mouse button and drag the header to the top of the panel, and the column disappears. You can do that with any of the columns. If you want to show those columns again, what you do is move to any of the headers of the other columns, press, in this case, with the right mouse button, go to Show Column Chooser, select the column that you want to be shown, and drag it to the headers of the other columns. Let go and the column is back again. You also have the possibility to sort on any of the columns. To do that, you go to the right of the header of the column and click with the left mouse button. A triangle appears and you can click on it to either have the columns sorted ascending or descending. Another option is to filter by any of the columns. You do that by going to the pin next to the title on the header and click on it with the left mouse button. For instance, I only want to show the 2016 samples, so I click on the date and only the sample of 2016 is shown. If I want to remove the filter, I go to the Clear Filter button and press on it. And in this case, all the samples are shown again. I can go to a sample by clicking on it, and it will open the image, or I can use the arrows, the one pointing down to go to the sample below it, and the one pointing up to go to the sample above it. In the panel below, called Sample Pictures, you can see the images that are available for a sample. In this case, there are 3 images, which is also shown here in this column. The image with the blue square around it means that that image is selected and seen in the panel on the right. I can either click with my mouse on another image to open that image, or use the arrows to go from left to right and scroll between the images. If I'm not happy with this view because I can only see 2 images and not the third one completely, I can change the layout of my view. I go to the header of a panel, click on it with the left mouse button and drag it around. I can, for instance, show it on the top, on the right, below, or on the left. In this case, I choose for the top. And now I see it on the top here. I can change the size of the panel, and now I changed my view. I can do this for any of the panels and move them around. If I want to get back to the original layout, I go to Settings, click on it with the left mouse button and click on Restore Layout. This brings me back to the original layout of SmartDots. In the lower panel on the left, I can enter my annotations. In this case, the status is red, so I haven't done any annotations yet on this image. The top part of the annotation panels allows me to do measurements and myotome counts in this case. I can select any of these parameters and they will turn orange when it's selected. When I do the measurements or the counting, a value will appear here and it will also show in which of the 3 pictures I've done the measurement. The color column shows in which color the measurement or the myotome counting is done. The last column gives me the opportunity to show the measurement and myotome counting or not on an image. Below here I have some questions for parameters that I can enter. If there's a red star behind it, that means the parameter is mandatory. If there's no star behind it, I can fill in information, but it means that the information is not mandatory to be filled in. When I'm happy with all the parameters and I filled in the mandatory parameters, I can approve the annotation by pressing the Approve button. On the right, I see the image that I have selected. I can either change the brightness of the image if I want to by using the slider next to brightness, moving it left or right, and clicking on the arrow, I can reset the brightness to the original one. The same here on the right for contrast, using the slider to change the contrast. Pressing the arrow next to contrast brings me back to the original contrast of the image. Below the image, I can choose the view. I can either use by clicking on the percentage to go in this case for 150% view and using the mouse to scroll around. I can also use the slider to increase or decrease the zoom. And if I choose fit, that gives me the best fit for this image for my screen settings. On the left, I see the size of the image and I get a scale in pixel per millimeters. If there is a scale attached to the image, it gives me a number, in this case 170 pixels per millimeters. If there's no scale, there will be a question mark. Above the image, I can see some buttons. If they are gray, that means they're not activated and I can do nothing with it. If they are orange or blue, they are either activated and I can use them. For instance, here I have a measure tool. If I click on it, it becomes orange and I can do a manual measurement. If I click on the arrow beside it, I get to the measure settings menu and I can choose a color of my measurement. I can choose the width of my measurement and I can modify the font size. If I'm happy with this manual setting, I can go on my image, click with the left mouse button and then drag the mouse and do a measurement, for instance. If I'm finished, I click with the left mouse button again and then once with the right mouse button and the measurement is finished. I can see that I drew a line of 1.96 millimeters. These manual measurements are a helpful tool for yourself, but they're not stored in SmartDots. If you're done with your measurement and you want to remove it, you go to the bin, click on it, it becomes orange, so it's activated. Click on your measurement and it disappears. Now, in this event, there is 3 larvae, 2 that are orange and 1 that is red, that I still need to annotate and approve. I will do that. So I go to the first one. On this first sample, there's only 1 image available. I already did a length measurement, and you can see that that's standard length. If I click on the show button, it will disappear and I can make it appear again. You also see that I already did some myotomes counting. Those are the dots that are shown on the larvae here. There is a value both for the number of myotomes and the standard length, and it gives me in this case enough information to enter the parameters below here. I enter the quality flag. I can do that by clicking on the arrow and getting a drop-down menu and selecting the code that I want to choose. The same for species. Click on the arrow, get a drop-down menu, and scroll to the species that you want to enter. Anal fin is not mandatory, but I will enter it this time. Go to the menu and click my answer. Same for the dorsal fin. Development stage is mandatory, so I need to fill it in. So now I've entered the measurements and the parameters that are mandatory, and I can approve my annotations. I go to the approve button, press it, and you can see that the status of this sample has now turned to green. So this sample is finished. If I'm later come back to this sample and I think, oh, but I've done something wrong here and I want to change a parameter, I go to the unapproved button, click it, and now the status has turned to orange again and I can change this. For instance, I'm not happy with the species and I want to give it a different name. And now again, I press approve and the status turns to green again. I go to this sample that I still need to finish. For this sample, I already did the myotome count, but I see that I've done a wrong one. This dot should not be here. I select number of myotomes, and then on top here, the dot button is chosen. I want to remove this last myotome count now, so I select the bin, click on it, and then click on the dot, and the dot disappears. So now I'm happy with my myotome count, and I can start filling in the parameters. I've shown you before to use the drop-down menu, but it's also possible just to enter the codes that you want to enter. The same for species. And the same for development stage. So I'm happy with my annotations and I can approve the sample. Now I go to the last sample. This is red, so I have not entered any annotations for this sample yet. As you can see, there's no values or pictures here. I first scrolled through the images because I want to see which image I want to use for my annotations. And I think I will use this one for annotating the number of myotomes. In this case, I click on number of myotomes, and the dot becomes active, and I can start my annotations. So I go to the first myotome, and then pressing with the left mouse button, the dots appear for my myotome counting. when I'm happy and finished with all my myotome counting, I can go to doing the standard length measurement. I click on it, but I decide that I want to do the measurement actually on a different image. So I click on the next image, and I've still selected the standard length, and also the pencil tool is activated. I go to the starting point of where I want to do the measurement, click with the left mouse button, move my mouse, and click again with the left mouse button if I want to change the direction of my line. Click with the left mouse button, click, 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 until I'm happy and I reach the end of the larvae. Note again that on the left all the panels are gray, so that means I'm still in the measurement. I'm at the end of the larvae, I click again on the left mouse button, click on the right, all the panels become the normal color again, and this means I finished my larvae measurement. I can also see that a value has now appeared in the length measurement, in this case of 1.63 centimeters. When I look at the picture column, I can now see that I did the annotations on two different images. So the standard length is on image 2 and the myotome is on image 3. Even though I've selected to show it, it's not shown here because I'm actually in image 2. If I move to image 3, then I will see my myotome count. I'm now happy and I can fill in the remaining parameters. So the quality flag, the species, and just the development stage in this case. And I approve my sample. In this case, I've now approved all my samples and I can finish my event. So I get the question, do you want to mark this event as finished? I click yes, and that brings me back to the event overview page in SmartDots. When I go to the line of my event that I just annotated, event 681, I can go to the user progress and it's shown as finished now. Also, if I look at the column progress, I can see that I did 10 annotations and there's only 10 samples, so I'm finished with this event. When I click on the event again, it opens. But it gives me the warning that I've already finished this event and I can only access it as read only. So I click OK and the event opens again. You see that indeed I have annotated all the samples, they're all green. And now below here in the annotations panel, I get to the view all instead of the own where I could enter my parameters. So now I get to the panel and I'm able to see the annotations of all the people that have entered the event, and I can select them and show them. Thank you for viewing this tutorial video.